Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be comparing the two thickies. We got the New Balance 550, the new thickie on the block. And then we got the Nike Air Force One, the OG thickie. We're going to be comparing the prices and colorways, the silhouette, the leather quality, and lastly we're going to be comparing how they both feel on feet. Then we're going to be answering the question, which one should you buy? So let's get into it. Starting off with the prices, the regular black and white Air Force One retails for $110. It used to be $90 for the longest, but those days are long gone. And the 550s come in at the same price, $110 even. However, as most of us know, once Nike puts any type of color on the Air Force One, the prices just tend to go up from there. And they can go anywhere from $120 to $150 at that point. And if it's a really special collab, it can go even higher than that. New Balance tends to stay at that $110 price tag, which is nice. Although that one collab, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it, this collab, does go up to $130. But for the most part, the New Balance 550s tend to stay at about $110 to $120. I'm thinking once the 550s become more popular, we're going to start seeing more expensive colorways and more expensive collabs. But right now, the 550s are just not as well established as the Air Force Ones, which, as we know, have a ton of colorways, near infinite colorways. Moving on to the silhouette, both shoes were made with a very similar design language, a chunky, low top, old school basketball sneaker. And both shoes accomplish that really well. Which one looks better is really up to you. The 550s have a ton of leather overlays, and they even incorporated some mesh at the rear. Personally, I really like those perforations on the side. I think it really gives it that extra basketball look to it. Meanwhile, the Air Force One keeps it simple. It sports a really classic design that has made it popular since the 80s. But while the chunky silhouettes are very similar, there are a few key differences. For one, the Air Force One does tend to run about a half size big, while the 550s run more true to size. The 550 also has a smaller toe box than the Air Force One. The Air Force One has a blockier toe box, while the 550's toe box is a lot sleeker. Also, it seems like the Air Force One has a more round toe box than the 550s. Next up, the Air Force Ones obviously have the Nike Air technology, which, for those of you who don't know, is an air pocket in the midsole, while the 550s use purely EVA in the midsole. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that air pocket might be the reason why the Air Force One is just a little bit taller than the New Balance 550s. Side by side, they both seem to have the same height, but if you look closer, the stitch line on the Air Force Ones is actually a little bit higher than the stitch line on the 550s. Now, I confirmed it also by obviously feeling inside, and inside you can tell that the Air Force Ones are actually just a little bit taller than the 550s. So the Air Force Ones are going to give you that extra little bit of height. On to the leather quality, the 550s leather feels pretty rough, but it is also firm, while the New Balance's leather feels a lot smoother, a lot sleeker, and it's also just as firm as the 550s leather. Overall, both shoes have really stiff, nice leather, which is really expected for that $110 price tag. Now let's talk comfort. Both are very comfortable on feet. Both feel very similar on feet. As you guys can see, I got both shoes on. I got 550s on this one, AF1s on this side. Now, I've been wearing both for a couple days now, and like I said, they're both very similar in comfort. A couple little differences I did notice though is that the heel to toe motion on the New Balance 550s does tend to feel a little bit smoother because it is a little bit shorter in length, so the heel to toe motion just a little bit smoother than the Air Force One. However, the Air Force One, because of that bigger toe box, it feels roomier on the upper than the 550s. And personally, I prefer the comfier upper of the Air Force One than the 550s. Like I said, both very comfortable shoes, both great shoes, but I think in terms of comfort, might have to give it to the Air Force One but that's just my personal opinion. So which ones should you guys buy? Honestly, that's kind of a hard question to answer. Both shoes are really great. If you haven't owned either of these shoes and you really only want to buy one of them, or you only have enough money to buy one of these shoes, I would have to give it to the Air Force One. The Air Force One's just a classic. You really can't go wrong with it, and it just feels like it has more heritage and history to it. So if you haven't owned either of these and you're on the fence about which one to buy, I would personally go with the Air Force One. However, if you do own a pair of Air Force Ones, but you just want you want to switch it up and you want a chunky sneaker that's different from the Air Force One, I would go with the 550s. I think a lot of people who own Air Force Ones are going to find this shoe refreshing because it is very similar to an Air Force One, but, well, it's different. And I really think New Balance did a really good job with this shoe. So overall, both shoes, very similar, great shoes. So let me know, guys, down in the comments, is the 550 a really good alternative to an Air Force One? Which shoe do you guys prefer? Do you guys prefer the 550s or the Air Force Ones? So guys, that's going to be it for the video. I really hope you guys found it helpful. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.